somewhere at the end of the 6th century before Christ, one object simply vanishes from the pages of the Bible. It was the holiest thing Israel owned. Kings had died for it. Cities had fallen because of it. A man was struck dead for reaching out to steady it. And then, after the armies of Babylon burned the temple in Jerusalem to the ground, the Ark of the Covenant is never mentioned again. No burial, no capture list, no goodbye. It is there, and then it is gone. This is the story of what it was, what it did, and the 3 places people still believe it might be tonight. It begins on a mountain. In the book of Exodus, God gives Moses the blueprint on Mount Sinai, down to the last measurement. A chest of acacia wood, about 4 feet long, overlaid inside and out with pure gold. On top, a solid gold lid the text calls the mercy seat, and rising from that lid, 2 cherubim of hammered gold facing each other with their wings arched overhead. Inside went the 2 stone tablets of the 10 Commandments. Later tradition adds a jar of manna and the staff of Aaron. But the ark was never meant to be a museum piece. Scripture treats the space between those 2 golden angels as a throne. In the book of Numbers, when Moses enters the tent to speak with God, he hears the voice coming from above the mercy seat, from between the cherubim. This was understood as the footstool of the throne of God on earth. That is the key to everything that follows. The Israelites did not carry a golden box. They believed they were carrying the presence of God himself, and presence in these stories is not safe. Watch what happens around it. When Israel finally reaches the Jordan River at flood stage, the priests carry the ark to the water's edge, and the book of Joshua says the river stops, piling up in a heap upstream, so the nation crosses on dry ground. Days later they march it around the city of Jericho once a day for 6 days, and 7 times on the 7th, and the walls collapse. The ark leads Israel into the promised land like a standard carried before an army. And it does not only bless, it burns. The ark radiates a kind of holiness that the Bible describes as physically dangerous to anyone who treats it carelessly. And the next few stories are going to prove exactly how dangerous. Generations later, Israel does something reckless. Losing a battle to the Philistines, they drag the ark out of the sanctuary and onto the battlefield like a lucky charm, as if God could be forced to fight for them. The gamble fails catastrophically. Israel is routed, the priests are killed, and the Philistines capture the ark and carry it home as a trophy. Then the trophy turns on them. The first book of Samuel says the Philistines set the ark inside the temple of their god Dagon. The next morning, the statue of Dagon has fallen face down before it. They stand it back up. The morning after that, Dagon has fallen again, and this time his head and his hands are broken off on the threshold. Then a plague breaks out. City after city is struck with painful tumors and an infestation of rodents, and wherever they move the ark, the suffering follows. After 7 months, the Philistine leaders have had enough. They load the ark onto a new cart, add a guilt offering of gold, and send it back to Israel on its own. They would rather lose the prize than keep dying for it. The most chilling story is also the shortest. Years later, King David decides to bring the ark up to his new capital, Jerusalem, and he does it wrong. Instead of having priests carry it on poles the way the law commanded, they load it on an ox cart. The oxen stumble. A man named Uzzah instinctively reaches out to keep the ark from falling, and the moment his hand touches it, he drops dead beside it. It is a jarring scene, and people have argued about it for 3,000 years. Was it cruel? The text does not read it that way. It reads Uzzah's death as the whole point of every story so far. The ark was not a good luck object to be managed on human terms. It was holiness itself, and holiness could not be steadied by a nervous hand. David is so shaken he leaves the ark at a nearby house for 3 months. Only when he sees that the household is blessed rather than cursed does he try again, this time carrying it correctly, dancing before it through the streets as it finally enters Jerusalem. David's son Solomon gives the ark its permanent home. He builds the temple, and at his heart, a windowless inner room called the Holy of Holies, a perfect cube of cedar and gold. The priests carry the ark in and set it beneath enormous carved cherubim, and the first book of Kings says, a cloud fills the house so thickly the priest cannot stand to minister, because the glory of God has filled the temple. Only one man, the high priest, could enter that room, only once a year, on the Day of Atonement. For roughly 4 centuries, that is where the ark rests, at the exact center of the nation's faith. And then history closes in. In 586 before Christ, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon besieges Jerusalem, breaks through and burns the temple. The Bible gives a careful inventory of what the Babylonians hauled away. The bronze pillars, the basins, the shovels, the pots, the gold and silver bowls, right down to the smallest vessels. The Ark of the Covenant is not on the list. It is not recorded as captured, not recorded as destroyed, not recorded as hidden. It simply is not there. From that silence, 3 great theories grow. The first says it was hidden before the city fell. A passage in the 2nd book of Maccabees claims the prophet Jeremiah, warned by God, took the ark to the mountain where Moses had once looked over the promised land, sealed it in a cave, and declared the place would remain unknown until God gathered his people again. It is a haunting image, the ark still waiting in the dark of a sealed cave. But even the writer frames it as something people were saying, a tradition, not an eyewitness report. The second theory travels much farther south. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church teaches that the ark left Jerusalem centuries earlier, in the days of Solomon, carried to Africa by Menelik, said to be the son of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. They believe it rests today in a chapel in the city of Axum, guarded by a single monk, who is never again allowed to leave the grounds, and who alone may look upon it. Millions hold this as sacred fact. No outside scholar, archaeologist, or camera has ever been permitted to verify it. The third theory is the quietest, and, to many historians, the most likely. It says there is no mystery at all. When Babylon stripped the temple, gold was gold. The ark was probably broken up, melted down, and carried off with the rest of the treasure, its wood burned, its story ending not in a cave or a chapel, but in a furnace. Unsatisfying, but honest. So here is the honest part, the part these stories usually skip. Outside the Bible and later religious tradition, there is no archaeological trace of the Ark of the Covenant, no fragment, no inscription, no contemporary record from Egypt or Babylon that names it. The dramatic modern claims, the explorers who insist they found it in a tomb under Jerusalem, do not hold up to scrutiny and have never produced examinable evidence. The Axum claim cannot be tested because no one is allowed to test it. And the cave in the Maccabees account was already legend when it was written down. What we have is one of the most powerful narratives in human history, and a trail that goes cold in 586 before Christ. And maybe that is why it never lets go of us. The ark is the point where a nation believed heaven touched earth, close enough to carry, dangerous enough to kill, and then it slipped out of history entirely, hidden by a prophet, hidden in Africa, or melted into Babylonian coins. We may never know. But the question has outlived every empire that ever chased it. So where do you think it is? Tell me below. And if you want a new biblical mystery like this one every week, subscribe. And I will see you in the next investigation.